Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we're jumping into Matthew Poole's commentary on Psalm 9. It's a psalm that's got a bit of everything: mystery, high praise, and some very serious judgment.
So right out of the gate, the psalm hits us with a puzzle. The title reads, "To the chief musician upon Muth-labben." And that last bit, Muth-labben, is what we've got to figure out first.
So, what does Muth-labben actually mean? This is the first thing Poole's commentary addresses, and believe me, it's a question people have been asking for a long, long time.
I love how direct Poole is here. He basically says, look, we don't know for sure if it's a song, a tune, or some kind of instrument. And you know what? It's okay to not know. He even points out that the ancient Jewish scholars weren't sure either.
So he goes through a few of the popular theories and just knocks them down because they don't fit the history. The idea that it's about Absalom's death, or some guy named Laban, nope. Even the one about Goliath's death, which sounds pretty good at first, doesn't work. And here's why. The psalm talks about praising God in Zion. But when David fought Goliath, Zion was still a fortress controlled by the Jebusites. The timing is just all wrong.
All right, so with that little mystery set aside, we can get to the real heart of the psalm, which is David's response to God delivering him. This is where you really see his theology come to life.
David kicks things off by saying he's going to praise God with his whole heart. This isn't just some casual thanks. It's a declaration, a full-body commitment from his entire being. Poole explains that this means the praise is sincere, it's affectionate, coming from a heart that isn't divided. And what's really driving it is God's favor and help. In fact, the very reason David wants to be delivered is so that he can turn around and praise God publicly for it. And this brings up this really powerful image, this contrast between where David is and where he wants to be. He talks about being at the gates of death. Poole says this means he's right on the edge of the grave, literally as close to death as you can get. So he's asking to be lifted up from the gates of death for a very specific reason, so he can praise God in the gates of Zion. These city gates were the main spot for big public gatherings, including worship. You can't get a clearer picture, from the edge of the grave to the center of public worship.
Now, this personal praise starts to broaden out into a description of who God is. The focus shifts from David's experience to God's character as the ultimate judge.
Poole points out that God's eternal nature is a two-sided coin. For his enemies, it's terrifying, but for his people, for the church, it is a massive comfort. Earthly kingdoms come and go, but the Lord, he endures forever, and his throne is ready for judgment.
And just look at the contrast here between God and his enemies. It's so stark. God endures forever, their name is wiped out forever. God's throne is prepared, their memory is gone. God is a refuge, and they are caught in their own traps.
Poole makes the point that the wicked get caught in the very schemes they cook up for other people. It's in these acts of judgment that the Lord makes himself known. This isn't just about punishment. It's about God revealing his perfectly just character to the world.
But that same God who judges his enemies is a place of absolute safety for the oppressed. We're seeing the other side of God's justice now.
The psalm says God will be a refuge, a high place, especially in times of trouble. Poole points out that this isn't just some far-off promise. God is a protection for his people right here, right now.
So who gets to have this confidence in him? The commentary says it's those who know his name. And that's way more than just knowing what to call God. It means really getting a grip on his nature and character, his power, his wisdom, his faithfulness, his goodness. That's the bedrock of our trust.
And that leads us to the psalm's final verdict. It draws this incredibly sharp line between the destiny of those who forget God and the hope of the poor and needy.
There's no mincing words here. Forgetting God isn't just a slip of the mind. It has eternal weight. It describes a life of wickedness, a life lived with no thought for God, his law, or the judgment that's coming.
Now, Poole's commentary helps us understand what hell, or Sheol in the Hebrew, means right here. The word can mean the grave, which is where everyone goes, but it can also mean the place of eternal punishment. Poole argues it has to be the second meaning in this spot, because the psalm is describing a punishment that is unique to the wicked.
So you're left with this final, clear distinction. The wicked, who forget God, are turned into hell. But the needy, who trust in him, get this incredible promise. They will not always be forgotten, and their expectation, their hope, will not perish.
The psalm wraps up with a prayer that is just so humbling. David asks God to put the nations in fear. Why? So that they may know they are but men,
frail, mortal creatures. And that really leaves us with a big question to wrestle with. What does it mean for us to truly know our place before an eternal God?